So we're going to go to manufacture now. So we were in the design tab. Now we're in the manufacture tab. So now we're going to right click on setup, new setup. What we want to do, so this is creating basically the block of wood that we're going to be carving from, right? So we're going to leave machine alone. We want to pick what point we want the machine to start at. We want it to start at the bottom left-hand corner here, but there's 3 dots there, one in the middle, one on the top, one on the bottom. We want it to be the top one of those. So if you look at it from this angle, it should be Z going up, Y going up that way, X going up that way. So that's what we want. All right, so we got the orientation. Now we're going to do the size of the box. We're going to do a fixed box size. We want the width. Let's just click on top here so it makes it look just right. So the width looks good. We don't need to worry about that one too much. And just so it's not in my way so much here, I'm going to click on the eyeball next to my sketch. So that's out of the way. Now the height, that's a little off. We're going to increase that. We'll make that 110. Yeah, that looks good. And those are centered. That's what we want it. The Z height. So that's for the thickness of the wood. Remember, we said that 0.75 inches is about 19.05. And we're going to make it just a little bit more than that. So actually, what we'll do is we'll do 19.75. It's just one that what I usually use. Now these, the Z axis, or sorry, the Y axis and the X axis are centered. That's fine. But for the Z one, we don't want it centered. We want it offset from the top. And we're going to offset it from the top by about 0.2 millimeters. And then we're going to name this fraying hands. That'll just be the name of the G code that it outputs. We'll say OK. Now we have our box. Our box contains our model. Our model is a little offset from the top, and it has some room around the edges, so it looks pretty nice. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and save that again. All right, so the next thing we're going to do is hog it out. So we want to get rid of the bulk of the material that's in there. So we're going to do 3D adaptive clearing. So on this first one, we're going to select our tool. We're going to go to our X-Carve tools, and I usually use the straight end. So we're going to use the straight end. It's also the black one, just so you know. So we'll select that. We're not going to worry about any of their settings on there. On the geometry, for the machining boundary, we're going to use silhouette. We're going to have our tool outside of it. So because it has an offset here, we also want to have an offset up here. We're going to do 1.5. That'll give it enough room to go down all the way along the side. And that way the ball nose won't have to do that. For our stock contour, we're going to turn back on our sketch here so we can see that. So we're going to select that. We want to make sure that when we have it, it is the nice blue line all the way around. Okay, so it's selected the boundary here. We're going to leave from setup for the source, tool orientation. We're going to leave all that the same. For this, we don't want it to go all the way to the bottom because what it would do is it would just break it loose. At this point, it doesn't have anything holding it there. So we're gonna leave it. We're gonna say about 3 millimeters on the bottom. On our passes, what we want to do here is we want to have our maximum roughing down. We don't want it to go all the way down in one go. We only want it to do about 2 millimeters at a time. It'll automatically change the fine stepping down to 0.2, which is good. So that should be fine. The next thing we want to do is we want to increase the maximum stay down distance, and that way it doesn't keep popping up all the time. In ours, we're just going to make it 100 millimeters right here. And then we'll say OK. So now what it's doing is it's generating the tool path, and you can see it's deciding where the bit is going to go. I'm going to turn off the sketch again. You can see it's going around the outside of the model like we told it to. The yellow lines are showing where it's going to pull up and travel and not actually do any carving. The blue lines are where it's actually carving. Okay, so here we have the completed tool path for this one for hogging out. And if you rotate it and you zoom in, you can see that it kind of shows you where it's been hogged out there. This is just rough, right? It's not showing, or it's not doing all the fine detail yet. So that's good. So we got that 3D one there. Next, we're going to do the more fine detail. So what we're going to do is we're going to go back to 3D and we're going to do parallel. So click on parallel. For the tool for this one, we're going to go back to our X-Carve library. This time we want to use the ball end. So if you click on the ball end, it's the red one. That's what we want. So leave all those settings. Here again, we're going to leave it on silhouette, and we're going to do tool outside boundary. We are going to change something here. We're going to say rest machining. We're going to say from previous, and we're going to say ignore cusps, and we're going to do the adjustment offset. We're going to change that to 0. Okay, and that just gets rid of the extra layer there because we're down to the details now. On this one, again, we want to make sure that we set this as 3 millimeters. We don't want it to go all the way to the bottom. On the passes, usually what I do for the step over is I do about 0.5 millimeter for each step over. And then on the last one, we'll leave that as 100 again. And then we'll say okay. So now it's going to compute this one. This one's much quicker. So you'll see that it what it's doing is it's going back and forth, instead of just going in circles and drilling it all out. It's just going back and forth, back and forth. A couple things you want to look for here. You want to make sure it hasn't tried to move through some stock that was left over. So sometimes what it'll do, and it doesn't look like it did it here, but sometimes it'll like just go right through this big piece of stock that we hadn't hogged out. Okay, so you can see that's looking pretty nice right there. It's already got a lot of good detail and it's looking a lot smoother. We are going to do one more 3D here. We're going to do a pencil pass. We're going to select a tool. We're going to use the same tool. We're going to use the ball that we did before, the red one. So select. Here, again, silhouette. We're going to do tool. This time we're going to leave it on center on boundary. And then we're going to, again, we don't want it to go all the way down. Just leave it off by 3 millimeters. And then all this should be fine. All this should be fine. We're just going to say okay. And so the pencil, what it does is it adds in the fine details. So here, see, it's doing the sharp edges and stuff. So it's done like the creases between the fingers and around the sleeve and stuff. And then the last one we're going to do, we're going to do a 2D, and we're going to do a 2D contour. For our tool, we're going to go back to the good old black one, right? The flat end mill, select that. And we're going to say, okay. I'm going to select my contour, oops, contour selection. So we need to see our sketch again. So we're going to select that. And now you'll notice it has this red arrow right here. You want to make sure the red arrow is on the outside. Otherwise, it's going to do it on the inside and that'll just eat up your stuff there. We do want tabs. We want our tab width, 3 millimeters, 3.1, some 5 is fine. We're also going to make the tab height at 3 millimeters. And then I'm not going to do it by distance. I'm going to do it at points. So I'm going to click on several different points here. I want a tab there. I want a tab there. I want a tab there. That looks like a good place for a tab. Oh, that looks like a good place for a tab. Right there. We'll do one more right there. You don't want to do too many, but you don't want to do too few. Okay. So retract height. This time we do want it to go all the way to the bottom. So we're going to say not selected contours. We're going to say stock bottom, offset by 0. We're going to do stock bottom. Remember that we told everything to drill down to 3 millimeters from the bottom. So now what we're going to do is we're going to say, well, we want to start at 3 millimeters from the bottom. So at stock bottom, we're going to change that to 3 millimeters. So the height is stock bottom 3 millimeters. The bottom is stock bottom 0 millimeters. So it's going to start at 3 millimeters from the bottom and go to 0 millimeters from the bottom. And then all of these settings on this one should be fine. We are going to say multiple depths, maximum roughing, step down. We'll put that at 2 millimeters, and then we'll say, okay. So now it's going to generate this. Okay, so now it's generated that toolpath, and you'll notice that it left the tabs there. So there's still some green showing where it's connected to the rest of the stock, but it's eaten through it the rest of the way. So there's holes all the way around so that it'll break out nice and easy. All right, so we have that. We have all of our paths ready to go. So we're going to save again. So the next thing we need to do is post-process. So that's where we actually create the G code for this. So we're going to right click on this. We're going to say post-process. So we're going to right click on it. We're going to say post-process. In here, we're going to click on this folder, go to cloud, easel, select. Okay, we want to change it to a different folder here. We're going to select our output folder. We're going to select the desktop just to keep it simple. So open. So this is easel. This is our name here. We're sending it to the desktop. We'll say post. So it says it was posted successfully. So let's just double check that if we minimize all of our junk here. So we do indeed see praying hands, which was successfully posted. So we'll go back to Fusion. So we did this one. This was with the black one. These two are with the red, and this one's with the black. Since these two are with the red, we can do both of them at the same time. So we'll select them both. Right click, post process. So again, it's easel. Let's go into the desktop. We're going to add a number here. So this is praying hands 2. And then we'll say post. So we can see it created praying hands 2. And then our last one here, we're going to create post process this one. So post process. This will be praying hands 3. This one's getting back to the black one, and then we'll post. Okay, so now we have the code. So this is praying hands 1, right? Praying hands 2, praying hands 3. So we have our 3 files, our first file, our second file, and our third file.